Already know that you are. Oh, I know that stress is karma. You regret. You got me thinking about when you were mine. You got me thinking about when you were mine. Now I'm all up on you. What you expect, baby? Should I coming home with me tonight? Oh, no. You just want attention. You don't want my heart. Baby, you just hate the thought of me with someone new. Yeah, you just want attention. I knew from the start. You're just making sure I'm never getting over you. What are you doing? 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 I know that dress is karma, perfume regret. You got me thinking about when you were mine. And now I'm all up on you. What you expect? But you're not coming home with me tonight. You just want attention. You don't want my heart. Maybe you just hit the thought of me with someone new. Yeah, you just want attention. I knew from the start. You're just making sure I'm never getting over you. Over you. What are you doing? 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 Yeah, you just want attention. I know from the start. You're just making sure I'm never getting over you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm glad you are here today. I'm going to keep letting people in, but this session is jam-packed. So I am going to get us rolling as we're letting everyone in. If you can, if you didn't see the note on the slide there, please have a small whiteboard and a marker available for this session. So I'll give everyone a moment to have that. And I am going to go ahead and get us started with our mission and vision. So thank you for getting those. Thank you for coming today. I know this is, I mean, to say this is not an easy year is just such an understatement. I don't even know if I want to say it, but I appreciate you being here today. This has been an assignment as well as a passion project. So we'll go ahead and get started. And what I have here is I have the vision, mission, values, and core priorities on one slide. And what we did is we went ahead and just kind of highlighted some words that apply to today. So you can read the whole thing, but I just want to talk about the idea of excellence. These aren't new ideas. We're just hoping to do them maybe better than we've done them in the past. Highest levels of academic success. We want to move our children in that direction. So we need the best strategies. From our values, personal and collective accountability. You're here because you have that about you and you're looking to make improvements or to learn something new. And then of course, at our core is a culture of teaching and learning because we're a school system and that's what we exist for. So with that, I'm going to move to our norms. And I want to go over a couple. If you're just coming in the room, it would be really helpful if you grabbed a whiteboard and a marker, had something available. If you have a clipboard and paper, that's also okay. So our norms are to stay muted and to have our camera on. So this is now a requirement in trainings, and it is a requirement for us to private chat you and ask you to turn your camera on if it isn't on, as well as to you know, ask people not to join us if their camera's not on. So I would really appreciate if we just take a moment here and everyone have their cameras on. This one was a little rough for me, but I'll be honest, we went to Science Saturday and all the pilot teachers were like, hey, you're the pilot teachers. You have to know everything. You have to be fully engaged to make the right choice. When they all turned theirs on, it was so nice to see people's faces and reactions as we were teaching. You probably remember that from last year if you were around. Use your full name. That helps us get paid. So check your little name on your Zoom screen now. Make sure it is your name that you get paid with. Use the chat. So if you have any questions or answer, we'll be participating in the chat a lot today. I would ask you though not to use the private chat for me because it's really hard to keep up with a private chat while presenting. And then, but if questions are asked, we have lots of friends here who can help with the use of the private chat. So with that being said, I'm going to drop the presentation in while I go through the rest of the norms. Okay. And the rest of them are be positive and patient. And of course, that's just always a good practice wherever we are. So here is a link to the presentation. And then we will go ahead and get started. So this is our Making the Most of Word Study, Word Work series, and we're going to have 4 sessions. There will not be a sign-in because we will be, the usage report for this meeting is your sign-in, okay? So these are our 4 sessions. We're going to cover phonological awareness and high frequency words today, phonics and spelling next. Then we'll talk about applying that in text reading and then making the most of our BAS assessment and the information we get from there. So let's go ahead and move along. So we're going to get started today with kind of building a shared understanding. So we're all in different places with our knowledge of phonological awareness in particular. So what we're going to do now is that link takes you to BAS Like a Boss. That's awesome. Let me fix that right now. Let's see. All right, it's just not as pretty and short, but it'll get you there. So there we go. I remember writing myself a note to fix that now that you say that. Okay, so there's the link to our presentation. And it's important that you're in the presentation because we're going to read something that's linked in the presentation. So let me give you a second to get in there. I see lots of names being added. I had someone who just joined us. So if you just joined us, I will add the link to the chat or the link to the presentation one more time here. So we're joining the presentation, and from here, I'm going to have you click on this. I will put this in the chat as well. This is going to link you to one page in our California framework, which really has to guide our work. And we're only reading the page that's there, and it's a quick skim. And as you read, I just want you to think about what information is known and what information is new to you. We'll go ahead and open that up. It should look like this. And as you're wrapping up, I'm going to ask you one more time, let's to have our cameras turned on. I know some of you just came in the room, so I want to make sure that norm reminder is out there. And as you are wrapping up your reading, if you could, in the chat, just add something that stood out to you from that little bit of reading. So this is our shared understanding, so go ahead and add that. And it could be known or new, but just something that kind of stuck with you as you read through that. Yeah, so some sounds are harder, right? All sounds are not the same. And it's not even the spelling of it. Some sounds are just harder to articulate, like R, right? R, for sure. What else? For me, it was this language rich environment that also supports our learners of phonemic awareness and phonological awareness. Anything else? Yeah, just because there's kind of a progression doesn't mean it's learned exactly in order. Rhyming being less difficult to understand, my students do not understand rhyming. That is a highly misunderstood or like a common thing. And it's partly because our students don't have rich language backgrounds. And so the place to understand rhyming is like in a Llama Llama book. Because when you start there and you pause, one of the first rhyming skills students can do is like guess the word, knowing that it's going to need to rhyme or recognizing it in context. But producing rhymes and doing other things with rhyme is a little harder. Okay, in context though, it is not as much of a struggle. Phoneme blending and segmentation being the most useful and important, yes. And then some things affect it, right? Like an initial sound in your name is easier to recognize than maybe rhyming, even though rhyming overall might be a skill, right? Isolating a phoneme though in the middle of the word is tougher. Yes. Okay. So that's kind of a little bit of shared understanding for us to develop. And like one of the things we're really trying on Zoom is to start our presentations with you doing something before we give you new information. So that was that. And let's talk about our learning intention and success criteria for today. Today, we're going to understand the role of phonological awareness and high frequency words in a balanced literacy approach. I think it's important to call out that balanced literacy approach. So we have this graphic on the side here. We've spent a lot of time, if you've been in BCSD for a bit, we've spent a lot of time on read aloud, shared reading, guided reading, and independent reading. And we're not leaving that. We are just layering in word work. And this is not about spending more time on word work, unless you're not spending any time. It's about becoming better at the time we spend with our word work. Okay, and then of course, writing is still an element that we haven't spent a lot of time on yet. Collectively, I know you guys do at your school sites. Our success criteria, we will practice and apply strategies to make phonological awareness and high frequency word instructive more efficient, effective, and engaging. And we're going to kind of stick with that throughout this session. So as we're building this, we're looking for efficient, effective, and engaging ways to teach word work so that we make the most of that time, hence the title, Making the Most of. Okay, so we will continue here. And we're going to go talk about pre-reading skills. So all 4 of these here in this graphic, I'll let you read those, I don't need to, are important for pre-reading, okay? Of those letter knowledge is one of the easier ones, like, simpler to get. Not simpler to learn necessarily, but teachers understand it. But we can't neglect the role of these other areas, oral language and beginning writing, because those all help us set the stage and get us ready to become readers. So it's important we not neglect any of these areas. Today, we're going to dig into phonological awareness because it's one of the most commonly misunderstood pre-reading skills. And what happens is, one, it gets confused with phonics, not the same as phonics. The other thing that happens is it gets overlooked and skipped completely. And then a third thing that can happen is it can be overemphasized. And so we need to have that approach. We need to have those skills in our teaching, but we need to have them in a balanced way. So that's what we will be talking about today. And we need to go with the definition. So what is phonological awareness? And here's 3 terms that get mixed up commonly. So phonological awareness is the ability to hear and manipulate the sound structure of language, okay? Phonemic awareness is like part of phonological awareness. It's just more specific, kind of like a square is a very specific type of rectangle. So phonological awareness would include these ideas. Clock is one word. Clock has 1 syllable. It rhymes with rock. And if you say the onset in rhyme, it is clock, okay? Phonemic awareness is phonological awareness, but at the single phoneme level. So it's things like hearing the individual sounds in a word, which was segmenting. The sounds in clock are k, ah, k, okay? And blending the 4 sounds in clock together, k, ah, k, clock, so that you can make the word. And knowing things like clock ends with a k sound. Okay. So those are fun. For our purposes, we just interchange these, and it's not really that big of a deal if you use the wrong term. We don't need to be the police about whether or not we're using the right term. What we need to understand is both of these refer to sounds without letters attached. So see how I have these descriptions under here? If you were teaching a lesson, the word clock would not be printed until you come to phonics. And so phonics is use of the alphabetic code along with your phonological awareness, okay? And we are not going into phonics today, but you need to know once you add the letter symbol to your instruction, you have moved into phonics and you have moved out of phonological awareness. Lastly, I'd like to say in your 1st grade TEs, this section is always called phonological awareness. So we tried to use that as much as I can, although I'm more comfortable with using the term phonemic awareness. So you might see me or hear me go back and forth between those. Okay, are we good with those definitions? Okay, I know we're all at varying levels of this, and I just want to make sure we have that established before we move on. So we're going to talk about some best practices in phonological awareness. First is an environment rich with language and print, which we saw called out in our framework, and we'll show a little more later. Second is to keep it playful and short. So we are not talking about long drawn out lessons. This is 2 to 5 minutes of our word work block, okay? Focus on the big 2. A lot of you in the chat added how blending and segmenting are kind of more important than the others. Yes, because blending is sounding out a word and segmenting is how you end up spelling a word, right? And then also teaching for awareness rather than mastery. So it's not like a progression of skills. Like I'm going to teach you my blending lesson 2 or 3 times and then boom, you're done with blending. We're moving on. Phonological awareness is more like number sense. It's kind of this nebulous thing, but it's this awareness that words are made up with sound and this ability to recognize how changing the sound changes a word, taking them apart and putting them together, things like that. So it's never like you end the lesson, and you can be teaching within a week several of those skills and then just keep repeating those phonological awareness skills throughout. So it's not like a progression, boom, blending done, next, segmenting. It doesn't work like that. All right. Let's see, I have someone who just joined us or who joined us again because they lost their connection. All right. Let's go ahead and move on from best practices to like kind of some ideas. So we're going to go through some slides now and really talk about like, what are some good strategies and things to be having going on in our classroom to make these, to represent these best practices. So the first one, it starts with just the environment, right? It's like the soil for your little readers to grow in. And so our environment needs to be rich with spoken language and printed language. And so this classroom's a little busy for me personally, but we chose this picture because it has pictures of words in isolation that students might be working on or learning, as well as pictures of words in context. So it looks like there's maybe a shared writing piece and their Pledge of Allegiance in writing so that they have print, but there's lots and lots, don't forget, of spoken language. So how do we build that? Well, we have our shared reading lessons in our units. So this is a poem from the second grade from Benchmark, but is also suggested as a poem in the unit. And the repetition of this word, poem. So if you have a shared reading, it's used until it's almost memorized. So you can skip a line and the students can insert the line, right? You read it with changed intonation, you cover words and see if they can figure out what they are, different things like that. And then we also need routines in our class. So instead of like, put your hands behind your back, you might use this little poem, you know, my hands upon my head I place, on my shoulders, on my face, on my hips I place them so, then behind my back they go, right? So I say this when we're lining up because that's language and not just a command. I want them to sit on the rug, I finish this little print witch poem, right? So then I raise them up so high, let my fingers fairy fly, now I clap them, 1, 2, 3, then I fold them silently. So these are ways we're transitioning, but we're giving our students that experience with the language that, quite frankly, they might be missing at home. And then there are fun songs and poems that are just fun. And Apples and Bananas is a great song for phonological awareness because they're changing the phoneme, right? So instead of apples and bananas, then we like to eat apples and bananas, and the kids love it. So these are just kind of reminders of how important, especially in a year where kids didn't have a classroom environment, that we need to provide that environment for them. And I think it's really important too, to remind us of this because I feel like Pinterest has made our classrooms prettier, but not always better for students because there are lots, it's really easy to get hooked up on all the pretty things Pinterest has for us, but are they usable for our students, right? Can our students access them and use them? Because we need to use that precious wall space. It seems like some classrooms have very little of it for things their students can use, okay? So that's my soapbox about language and also a good strategy. So next, we are going to move into some curriculum connections, okay? So we want to talk about like, well, the easiest place to go for anything is our core curriculum, right? So where do we go in our core curriculum for language? In your TE, on your phonics and word study section, phonological awareness will always be the very first thing. And again, it's important to remember, this is spoken language only. Okay, and they have a little script for you. What's really nice is when you have the routine and the script so in your head that you just use it, right? I'm just looking there for what words are we going to segment or blend or whatever the case is. So where can I find routines all in one place? It is this Advancing Phonics Skills that is electronic, and I think you guys also have the hard version of it in your rooms somewhere. So I have linked this here, and I want to talk about where those routines are and where they can be found easily. So I'm going to copy this link in the chat. It's important for you to open this because we're going to go over a couple of those. So I'll give that to you. And now I need to do it. And once you're in here, you'll see that instructional routines. So from that link, you're going to click instructional routines. And these routines are the same kinder through second grade. Okay, so you can open up any grade level of this book and you'd find the same routines. They are listed in level of like sophistication, less sophisticated to more sophisticated. Again, though, the sophistication of the word also determines how hard or easy any of these skills would be. Okay, so we talked about the big two, and I'm going to add one more to that, which is on Monday, most of the time you will see phoneme phoneme isolation or blending or categorization. Have you guys seen that in your TEs? A lot of times Monday is phoneme categorization. Okay, so if I were to open this one, like click print so I can see it, I find this one very difficult for students without picture support. So if I say moon, mat, pin, which one's different, and I'm speeding this up, it's hard for kids to remember which one. So if you use phoneme categorization, I suggest you use picture support. If you don't have time to find all the pictures for your phoneme categorization, just change it up. Don't do this routine. Do like the isolation, phoneme isolation routine, or just teach yourself this. Today we're going to talk about the sound shh. Watch my mouth. Shh. If you do not have a, what's it called? A shield with a drape, I would request one so that you can show students what articulation looks like. Okay. So we're learning the sound shh. I'm not telling them how it's spelled because it's not phonics yet. And so I want you to tell me if words have the sh sound. So it'd be like this. If I say shh, thumbs up, sure, thumbs up, sing, thumbs down. That has the s sound, not the sh sound. So can you guys do this with me? Shut. And can you show me your thumbs up or down? Shut. Good. And you can say it if you need to. Moon. Good. And wish. Who got tricked? I never said where the sh was. I did that for you because you're adults. Shh. At the end, right? Wish. Do you hear it? Say it and feel the sound shh at the end of the word. Okay, that's all it is. That's phonemic awareness right now. You see how short that is. On Monday, do that with that, whatever your phonics skill is for the week. All right. So I'm going to go back to that list of routines, and I suggest printing these two if you're on a computer that's hooked to your printer and you have ink and paper. If not, pull them up. We're going to talk about segmentation first, phoneme segmentation. By the way, the inability to hear sounds in a word, it doesn't let you open. It's probably, are you signed into Clever? Did it ask you to sign into Clever? If you're unable to open, I would try signing into Clever.
I'm in Clever now, so which one would it be?
Now go back to the link in the chat, the link that starts with Bubba, and click on it again because it should open right up.
Okay.
Segmentation of phonemes, the ability to know that a word is made up of individual sounds is so important. The inability to recognize that is one of the leading causes of ending up in a special ed. So that's really important for us to remember. Okay. This is a simple routine. And then I would also ask you to open and print the blending routine. you have that available. If you don't have that available, we can always download them and add them to our drive. But for me, I just want to memorize the routine and then move on, right? Like once it's embedded, I don't have to read it anymore. I can toss it. So with that, I'm going to come back to our presentation. Maria, what grade do you teach?
K through 4th.
Okay, you're gonna have to email CS support, letter C, letter S support at bcsd.com and ask them because you should have access to all of that.
Okay, thank you.
And every grade level, by the way, so.
Thank
you. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we are going to we're gonna do a little practice. I'm gonna stop screen sharing because this is probably pretty inauthentic way to practice, okay? So I am going to use my routine. So we want it to feel like quick and game-ish, right? So if we're segmenting, we have to be really careful of how we articulate words. So we're not gonna say k, right? Because that's a C sound and the short U sound. It's best to extend sounds that can be extended. So for instance, t, you can't say t for a long time, but you can say sh or any vowel sound for a long time. So if you can extend the sound, kind of extend it longer. All right, a little longer. That's very supportive for students. So it's going to be like this. Hey guys, today we are going to play a game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a word. And what I want you to do is tell me the sounds in the word I say. Let's see if you can segment it or take it apart. Okay. So I'll show you what I mean. The first word is rug. And now I'm going to think about all the sounds in that word and count them. Rug. Rug. Okay. Now you try it with me. I want to see your fingers counting and I want to see your mouth saying the word rug. 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 Great job. Okay, try this one with me. The next word is fetch. Let's see how many sounds are in fetch. Okay, let's go. Fetch. Fetch. Okay. How many sounds were there, guys? All right, show me on your fingers. And the next word is slam. Oh, you know what? And I'm sorry, at this point, I would say you try, and I want to, when my students are ready, I want to turn off my voice and I want you to say it. So I'm going to go over. The next word is slam, and I want to listen to how you do. So I'm going to turn my voice off. Slam.
Oh.
And how many sounds were in that, guys? 4. All right. So that's that. It's very organic. No materials, right? Just your voice. All right. So that's the segmenting routine. And the next routine is blending. So blending is the opposite of segmenting. Segment, we start with the whole sound, the whole word. We break it up into sounds. Blending, we start with the whole word. I'm sorry, we start with the sounds and you're going to squish it together to make the word. Okay. So today we're going to blend our sounds together to make a word. Listen as I say this, okay? My first word is night. Oops, did I just do that wrong? I sure did. I'm still segmenting, excuse me. The first sounds we're going to blend together are these. See if you know which word. My turn. Night. Okay. You try it. Okay. Okay, let's try the word spoon together. I keep reading. I have a list of words and I'm reading them to you. I'm sorry. Let's try another one. Okay. So I can't tell you the whole word because then there's no point of you blending it together, right? So I'm going to change that one. So try this one. Or your turn. And then I would wait for you guys to say fork, right? And So you get the point here, right? Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move into a little time of practice in breakout rooms. So if you don't have those open again, go back to that Bubba link and open those routines if you can. A quick note before we practice. If you use your right hand and count like this, because we automatically put our index finger first, it will go left to right for students, which is the direction they read. If you use your left hand, you're going to end up going right to left, and we don't want to mess with their directionality. So for segmenting and counting, I use my right hand. But guess what? If I use my right hand for blending, if I want to go like this with a motion, it's backwards. So I use my left hand for pulling words for blending. Right hand segment, left hand blend. Okay. So just kind of think of that. And when you're in there with your partners, I'm going to try to put you in groups of 2. Tell your partner, like, hey, that was backwards to me. Okay. Because that's just kind of something to be mindful of. Also talk about that articulation. Okay. So if your partner says something like, buh, make sure say, remember it's buh, just gently. Because not all of us have been first grade teachers forever, right? So some of us have heard this message over and over, and for some of us, this is new. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And all of these words here, I'm going to add them to the chat. So these are your practice words. Some are for segmenting, some are for blending, and I believe if I put them in the chat here, you will be able to see those in your breakout rooms, okay? So here are your words for practice in your chat. One person be the segmenting teacher, then switch, and one person be the blending teacher. If you're not the teacher, you're the student. Are we good? All right. That's like the worst check for understanding ever. Are we good? But let's go ahead and okay, I'm going to go ahead and start our great breakout rooms at this point. If there are 3 people in your room, just try to do 3 rounds while we're here.
We got kicked out. Oh, we can't hear you.
I forgot I muted. You're all getting kicked out.
Oh, okay.
So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we will get started. And I hope that practice just gives you that minute to really like consider your routine if you're used to one, and are you putting the parts in that need to be there? And then if you kind of are newer and unsure of that routine, gave you a moment to practice. Because these scripts are great, but they're kind of awkward, right? And it sounds much better once they're just ingrained into our teaching and they're a little more natural. I'm going to move along, and we're going to talk about, those are our basic blending and segmenting that are so important, but we're going to just talk about some things that help make blending and segmenting and phonological awareness in general more efficient, effective, and engaging. So with that, one thing to think about with phonemic awareness is, and phonological awareness, is to make a move with it. Okay, sometimes just sitting still and listening is hard for kids, and movement creates memory. So think of a move that you might want to have for a word. And my favorite movement for a word, I tend to do it more like on a flat surface or desktop, is to move it in the direction that I like read a word, right? And this helps you all have those kids who like they're going to write a sentence and they change the words every time, right? So they need to count the words in their sentence, like she, and I would have them count separately, right? She runs fast. And that you can even write underlines if they struggle. That would be more with phonics, but that idea that students have to develop that awareness that she runs fast isn't one word, right? They need to know that's 3 words. That's usually a kindergarten skill, but in our writing, we can reinforce that for students who need it by having a movement for it. It's also nice in blending, we can have that movement of, I just realized I was backwards, of pulling a word, right? And that movement kind of connects to that desk movement also for counting a word. Have a movement for syllables, because your students are going to want, you know, they're going to need that awareness of syllables. So it's usually a clap, right? Computer is the most common. And that's great, because what we want to do is take that computer, right? And then say, come, what are the sounds? Let's segment come into some sounds, right? And so we want a movement for sounds. So if it's splash, we would be, our movements might be splash, or this is how you can do it if you're worried about backwards, or splash. Okay. But that idea that counting fingers represents a sound. Having those movements consistent helps you. And you can imagine how you do computer. Teacher, I need to spell the word computer. Okay, computer. Okay, now we're going to segment each syllable. Right? Pew, and that helps them write. And we're not telling them, we're giving them the skills, the phonological skills, so that when they're in writing, they can do those. Okay. So for a moment, I want you to think about what's your move, because it doesn't have to be those moves. And if anybody has, I'm going to stop screen sharing so I can see everyone. Does anybody have a move they prefer for one of those and would like to share? I would need a raised hand or an unmute if you do. All right, so it sounds like probably most of us either hadn't thought about one or they use the same ones. So again, adding that movement builds muscle memory so that our students can apply what they're learning in phonological awareness in other places. And you will see your students using those movements during phonics when we don't require them to have the movements, because it just becomes so innate in them. All right. So that's one strategy, is to add movement to connect movements to your phonological awareness skills. All right. The next one is to use supportive, manipulative, supportive items with your phonological awareness instruction. So the blending and segmenting routines are just the basics. We're just talking. One of the best things you can do for students who don't have that awareness of that words are made up of sounds is this, like this lesson here. This is a virtual lesson, so obviously we would prefer to have students doing this in person and touching the cubes, but I'm going to show you this just as an example. So this is a traditional Elkonin box lesson. Sniff.
Let's take a word and pull the sounds apart. Tell me the word and then we'll start. I'm going to tell you a word. Then I'll tell you the sounds. Then you're going to do it by yourself. Pan. Pan. Your turn. Say pan. Did you say the 3 sounds? Moose. My turn. Moose. Now it's going to be your turn to say the 3 sounds. Say moose. Sound moose.
In first grade, this was never a whole group lesson for me. In kinder, this is often a whole group lesson. So when you have students who can't say the sounds in moose, ooh, then you start by having them move it, because the movement is helping them recognize. They're moving in the manipulative, again, that movement and that memory to show each sound. And then we can add their voice. So this is just a more supportive way for students to segment. So this would be something probably happening at your small group table in most years, although this year in first grade, we might struggle with phonological awareness more than other years. And so this might be a whole group lesson where everyone has Elkonin boxes and manipulatives. But again, ideally the students would be touching and moving. This is a great little picture. These kids, I guess apparently you can purchase these little rugs and then the students can step forward for each sound, which is awesome, right? Have the students' backs facing the rest of the class if you do something like this, but please don't purchase these little Elkonin box rugs, because most of us have rugs in our room that have Elkonin boxes in them. So we just kind of put that picture of a rug that lots of us have, because that would be a great way to use this strategy. Okay. So, and then the last one, again, this is about being supportive with pictures. And I want to point out in that video, she had pictures also, which helps the student anchor that word. Because, you know, sometimes they're like, what did you say? Or I forgot the word, particularly students who struggle. And so we have some picture cards here. So if I was using the phoneme categorization lesson on Monday in my TE, I might say, you know, which one of these words does, and I'm doing S blends, which one of these words does the sound differently in? So I could say skate, star, shirt. And you know, some students won't remember those 3 words. So having the picture there helps them, they can say it in their head again and notice which one sounds differently. I was in the S section of the picture card, so they're all S words. But I can also use this if I'm practicing blending. Okay, friends, I'm going to say some sounds and I want you to squish them together, and I'm just going to help you. It's going to be one of these pictures. So R, right? And so now the students have these pictures to just kind of help them like recognize what you're saying. So if you're going R and they can't complete that, add some picture support, okay? If they aren't able to blend that together. All right, that's a lot, yeah? So we're gonna go through just a little bit more. Take a look at this here. So this is just connecting to reading and writing. So in the past, phonological awareness and phonics were kept so separate. It's like, no, there can't be words about. But really the purpose of phonological awareness, blending and segmenting, is because it prepares us to read and spell. So it's okay to build that connection in for students. If I have these Elkonin boxes here, eventually we might talk about putting letters in them after they've mastered this, right? So when we are working, connect that. So if a student is struggling with the word fast in this little text here, then if, especially students who go like, have you ever had those students who go fast, and then they say slim, and you're like, where did that come from, right? So we're going to support them two ways. We can have them stretch it. So it's fast, right? So when I'm blending, I can do that. In my blending lesson, fast. Make it more continuous to support students if they're struggling with blending, okay? Or just always. And then that stretch it out guided reading card is saying the same thing. We're stretching our sounds out, okay? So that we can squish them back together and say it fast. So that's a connection between oral blending. And sometimes you might have to say, hey, look at me. Stop looking at the word, okay? Asked. What would that say if you squish it together? So you're building that phonological awareness during reading time. Okay. And then my favorite go-to is segmenting. Segmenting, if a student spelling, the skill of spelling isn't memorizing. The skill of spelling is segmenting. So when I'm doing shared writing with my students, I'm going to have some ideas of some words I want them to help me with. So I can be writing like, today is Thursday, right? We do have school tomorrow. I want to write, we do not have school tomorrow. We do not have school tomorrow. Okay, friends, how do you, what are the sounds you hear in the word not? Help me out, right? And so then you're going to say, count the sounds for me. Okay, not, what are the sounds? T, not. Okay, all right. And I'm going to write 3 underlines because this has 3 sounds. Right? T. Now watch me. I'm going to write an N for an O for and a T for T. Okay, but invite them because now they're seeing that connection between the segmenting they do orally and the purpose of segmenting, right? So the use in the real reading and writing, and if it sounds newer, like shh, personally here, I would write 1 long sound, shh, because shh is 1 sound. Do you see the go fish? I would write 1 long line, and then I would put 2 letters on that line. Friends, one of the hardest things to learn in 1st grade, you know, if you've taught it before, is the idea that more than 1 letter can represent 1 sound. So putting 1 sound at the end of 1 line at the end of fish, right? But writing 2 letters on that 1 line reinforces that sh is 1 sound that's spelled with 2 letters. Okay, and we need to get that going early before we hit a silent E, so that understanding is built. Okay, last strategy, and I know I'm throwing a lot on you, so we're going to have a little bit of time to think about these, is just assessment, formal and informal. Okay, so I know a lot of us are asked to write CFAs in our schools. And one of the great things you can do if phonological awareness is an identified place, is the writing picture names. It is in your BAS assessment, in the optional assessments. Okay. And basically you have pictures more than this. I think there's 6 or 8. And you have pictures like this, and you show the kids the pictures and they try to write the word. Okay. When you get to the directions of this assessment, you are not counting, it's not a spelling test. What you're checking for in this writing picture names is, do they write 3 symbols for a word with 3 sounds? Okay, So a student, cat and mug here in this slide would get the same number of points if I'm testing phonological awareness because the student knows there are 3 sounds there, okay? So this isn't spelling, I'm really checking, like, can they write a symbol for every spell in the word, sound in the word? 9 in this word features test as it's written has 2 sounds, or it has 3 sounds. So this student would get 2 points, right? Because they got 2 of the sounds, but they didn't hear the end sound, okay? But NIN would get the same number of points if I'm testing phonological awareness because they know it, the sounds are n, I, n, even though they didn't spell it correctly. Does that make sense? I'm not going to open this link because I want to move along, but writing picture names, that folder, all of those are linked. And then the last thing I want to say on phonological awareness is right here. The horse went, okay, that we're going to check when they're reading. If there are words they need to sound out, we're checking if they can blend them back together when they sound them out. And we can also observe this in their writing informally. Okay, here's a student with terrible spelling, but great phonological awareness. Look at how he spelled water. Okay, this is about the leopard, seal, and the penguin. Okay, so we can know if our students have phonological awareness by reading their writing. Okay, scheduling, I'm just going to say this quick. Monday, we're introducing whatever sound we're introducing. We can do isolation or categorization with it. It's in your TE. Remember the thumbs up, thumbs down. Tuesday's usually blending. Wednesday's usually segmenting, rhyming or substitution. And Friday's usually a revisit of segmenting or blending. This gets segmenting and blending in there the most. And again, they're 3 to 5 minute lessons. And this is repeated week after week after week. It's not, again, it's an awareness that we're building over time. All right, with that, what learning and strategies are sticking with you so far? So we kind of put a little review of some of the things we covered because it was a lot. And if you could add to the chat, what is sticking with you right now? I'll take a look at that as my own informal assessment. I have a make your move. Segmenting during shared writing, saving time, right? It's not just in that 2 to 5 minutes. We can reinforce it in other places. Yeah, keeping it short, yes. And when you're teaching a new routine, there might be 8 words that you want to blend, and you might do 3 because we're learning a new routine, right? Picture support, absolutely, great. Okay, I'm glad there's understanding. I'm so happy that you're finding things to remember. I'm gonna go through some quick pitfalls, okay? Not enough focus on blending and segmenting. I think we got that now, right? Lack of support. So this is from Wiley Blevins, Fresh Look at Phonics, okay? Those are things like sound boxes, hand signals, stretching your sounds, okay? Picture cards. Not integrating letters into more sophisticated phonics phonological awareness activities. Improper sequencing, remember they're not linear, but what is linear, guys, is that word progression. We talked about that when we read the framework. And then doing phonemic awareness well past the time that students need it. If your students are reading like level H and I most of your class, then the time for phonological awareness for whole class has passed you by, okay? So with that, we're gonna move into high frequency words. I wanna make sure we get through high frequency word, sight word. I don't think the word high frequency word is useful to students. I recommend that you call them sight words or something else. But I like the word for me because what is it? They're common words that students need to know with automaticity. It doesn't matter which word list you use. They all differ a little because they're the most common words in their text. So our fast high frequency word list are the most common words in early reading text, where like a fry list is the most common words in all text, okay? A quick note about that. I was going to have you read this, but I'm playing catch up right now. If you haven't noticed, the important thing I want you to see of this writing from the framework is a couple things. One, we point out irregularities and focus attention on all letter combinations, okay? We don't introduce too many at one time, and we're always reviewing previously taught words, okay? And we spend more time on the tricky words like was, said, they, and there, okay? I love this quote at the bottom. Most students need 8 to 12 words exposures to commit a word to memory. Struggling students need 50 or more, okay? So we're not sending them to special ed because they couldn't get it in 8 to 12. 50 or more is struggling, but it's still normal, okay? So we got to give them those exposures. So best practices, focus on the earliest words. I have people say, where's the 3rd grade high frequency word list for my special ed students? Okay, are they ready for the 3rd grade words? Because those are less frequent than the kindergarten and 1st grade words. So the earlier words have more impact. These 13 words represent 25% of written language, not in children's text, in our text, okay? So some words are just more important than others, okay? Assessment is your friend. Don't start the word you're teaching your kids words that they already know, okay? Figure out where they are and make that your spot. But you can be ahead of or behind where you think you should be, but go with that, okay? Attend to letter sound connections. Sometimes we would like to call high frequency word like oddball words as if there are no letter sound connections. There are, just not all of the letters and sounds are connected in some of them. Keep it playful and short. Hey, that's just a good idea when you're teaching. And embed high frequency word learning throughout your day. So we are getting back on track, and I'm so excited because this routine is awesome. So this is from Wiley Blevins in A Fresh Look at Phonics. And this is how our routine, I'm not going to pull it up for you. It stinks. It's very bland. This one gives you, it says, activates all 3 ways that words are stored in your brain, which is sound, meaning, and letters. So I'm going to show you what that routine would look like with this word. Let me stop screen sharing. And I love this idea for high frequency words that comes from him. So here's my card, but when I introduce it, it's like this, okay? So the first thing is we're going to introduce with context because we want to connect the noun. So let me, if you could put it in speaker view, your view, that helps you see the word, okay? So I'm going to read the sentence. I am from the United States, okay? This is the word from. What's the word? Okay. Now I'm moving on to the spell part of this routine, okay? The word from is spelled F-R-O-M. Okay, spell it with me. Got it? What's the first sound? And I can connect this, right? If I happen to be doing consonant blends, I would point out that from starts with a consonant blend, right? And I would help them. Is there a spelling here that you wouldn't expect? Is there a letter here you wouldn't expect to be there? Yeah, this O, right? Usually says ah, but this isn't from, it's from, okay? All right, so you're gonna draw that attention to the letter sound connection, all right? So now we're gonna write the word, okay? So watch me, I'm going to say each letter as I write it, okay? F-R-O-M. Okay. Now you write it. Say each letter as you write it. And show it for me so I can check for understanding. Now, I'm going to erase it. Let's write it again somewhere else on our board. F-R-O-M. And I want you to write it in 3 places on your board. Got it? Say the spelling as you write it. Okay. All right, did everybody do that? That's awesome. All right. Okay. So the next part of this after write is extend, okay? So I'm going to go back. I started with context because the students have heard the word from before. They understand this sentence, okay? So we're going to begin and end with context. So I'm going back to extend and I'm saying, I am from the United States. Turn to your partner and use the word from in the sentence. And you can direct them to say, I am from, or if they're comfortable enough, they can just make up a sentence with from. You decide. All right, so that's a read, write, spell, extend routine. And I want to make sure it's available to you. It's linked in the slide presentation right here. These pink words, how it says flash words and heart words and what's missing, you'll see those come back to us, okay? So those are going to be mentioned later. And as this routine becomes boring, those will help you spice up this routine. You'll see what I mean when we go over those. Any questions? All right, I'm going to keep going. Okay, the next, have you guys heard of flash words and heart words? So this is kind of fun. This is a favorite of mine. So what we might do with this word, by the way, before I move on this sound spelling card, my 5 words of the week, if I'm teaching 5 words this week, I keep the sentences up all week. Then when I'm done with them, I can fold it up and put it on my word wall. Okay. So they would have context all week. Here we can go over heart words and flash words. And I might put a heart over the O in from. So let's talk about why. Flash words are words that are used so frequently in writing that we need to learn them in a flash. Okay. So like in, can, not, did. Okay. Phonetically, they're correct, but we still need to know them like this. We can't be sounding those out. They're too common. All right. Heart words are high frequency words. They're also used frequently, but they need to be read and spelled automatically. Unfortunately, they don't follow the rules, so we have to learn them by heart. So that's where the little saying comes from. This is a fantastic strategy. So say I introduce all these words on Monday or whatever day, then what I'm going to do is the next day, we're going to go over them. So just unmute quickly. Let's look at the word because. I'm going to go with your adult readers. So which letters don't follow the rules might trick us in the word because? Which ones do we need to learn by heart? Can someone unmute and tell me?
You.
Thank you. And so we're going to put a heart above the A-U. I don't like where that landed. Okay. And it's just like that. I want to keep in mind, if you have students who are unfamiliar with the silent E, it depends on where your students have, what your students have learned in their progression, right? So unless I am from a place that says because, AU is always going to be a heart in the word because, right? But S that says Z, depending on if my students have learned it. So if they're not familiar with S's that make the Z sound, we can add a heart to that. You guys are all familiar with it, so we're not adding a heart. Got it? Okay. Them, are there any, and we can go through and say, are there any sounds we need to learn by heart? No, we can sound them all out. What about when? Is there a heart there? What do you think? Even though that's a phonetic spelling, right? When, if I haven't, even if I've taught the WH spelling, guess what? Is there a way to tell that when has a WH when I say it? No. So for me, I would put a heart here because we need to learn by heart that the word when has an H in it. I've seen WEN in too much of my students' writing. And then on who, quickly, if you could put in the chat, what letters get a heart? We have 2 letters. Thank you. Yeah. I know that was a pretty obvious one. I just wanted to hear from you guys. Thank you. Yes. And so dragging these is not so easy to get them exact, and I'm not going to take the time to do it. You get the idea, right? So that is heart words and flash words, and it's a great way to draw our students' attention to the idea that most of the words decodable. There's just usually 1 or 2 tricky parts. Okay.
I have a quick question. Can you go over again? Why is it that the WH is a heart when we teach it as a digraph?
It is a digraph, but no one, I don't know anyone like in our local dialect who says "hua," right? So it's a phonetic spelling, but a student is not going to hear it. So they can probably read it easily as a digraph, but if they're writing it, there's no way for them to tell if it's a W or WH. And again, that's a teacher decision, but personally, that would be how I would do it. I don't know if that is by the book. Got it. Okay, perfect. All right, so next one is called What's Missing, or I'm sorry, this is high frequency words and guided reading. You'll see this can be used whole group 2. This is from Jan Richardson. So I'm just going to play the video because it speaks for itself.
After students have read their new book, teach them a new sight word from their story. Teaching the word after they have read the book gives students an opportunity to read the word several times before you teach them to write it. This makes it easier for them to learn the word. Here we will show you the 4 steps for teaching the new word. These 4 activities provide for gradual release of responsibility. In step 1, students will play What's Missing. Write the word or make it with magnetic letters. Tell students the word and ask them to look at each letter as you slowly slide an index card left to right across the word to help them attend to left to right sequencing. Erase or remove a letter and ask, What's missing? As the students tell you the missing letter, place it back in the word. Repeat the process several times, removing 1 or more letters, calling on a student each time to tell you what's missing. Because children think it's a game, they will pay attention and look closely at the word. Step 2 is Mix and Fix. Have students take the magnetic letters off their trays to make the word. They can use your model if necessary. Have the students slide the letters to the left or up, looking carefully at the sequential order of the letters. Teach students how to check the word by sliding their finger under the letters as they read it. Have the students mix up and remake the word several times. In step 3, cover up the words with an index card and then have students write the word on the table with their finger as they say the word in a natural way. Let them peek under the card if they forget how to write the word. This tactile activity helps them build a memory trace for the word. Step 4 is Write it and retrieve it. Students write the word on a dry erase board. If they need help remembering, tell them to say the word slowly as they write it. Listening for the sounds will help them remember the letter sequence. Later, when they have developed a stronger system for remembering, they will not need to do this step. Ask them to write it quickly without stopping. Discourage naming the letters, W, E, N, T. You want them to learn the word as a complete unit, went. Now ask them to write a different word, one they know well. Have them write the new word again. This helps the students put the new word into long-term memory. If you follow these 4 steps to teach new sight words and review them each day at the beginning of your guided reading lesson, you will be amazed at how well students are able to use these words as they read their books and write stories.
Okay, so I'd like to point out this one also started with a guided reading book that the students had read. That's where the words came from. So they heard the words in context first, just like our read, write, spell, extend routine. And a couple brilliant things about this. High frequency words are about memorizing, right? We want to remember them. So these ideas of covering it and writing it, and then writing a new word, and then going back and writing an old word you already know, and then going back and write the word you're learning. These help us build memory, okay? We need to do less copying of the word and more remembering how the word is spelled. Now you say the spelling, if it's a brand new word, you introduce like in our routine, but here, right, they've already said the spelling earlier. And so when they're to the writing stage, they're no longer saying W-E-N-T, they're thinking of the sounds, okay? And trying to become automatic with it. Okay, that's a great routine. I love that one. And the mix and fix and the what's missing can easily be added into my routine for introducing words too. All right, so let's talk about word walls. Word walls were like so in fashion when I first became a teacher. They were like the big thing. Everybody had to have a word wall. And then people were like, they're not that effective. They're only effective if you do a word wall. So if you see the top, we say don't have a word wall, do a word wall. So when these words are done, again, remember our framework says we need to be reviewing these words all the time. Best practice, they go up in your room and they're visible, right? They're big enough and visible, usually under letters so we can find them, okay? So what does it mean to do a word wall? It means we introduce them with a routine on Monday, and then the rest of the week, we are doing something with that, with our new words that we learned, but also our old words. So remember our new words were from, because, them, when, and who in our theoretical classroom. So now what we're going to do is talk about some ways that we can do the word wall. So on Tuesday, or maybe the next day of the week, you might go through the heart word flashword and add hearts to all your tricky spellings, okay? That would just be your new words because your old words would have hearts and flash. Then the next time you visit, you can play what's missing or mix and fix. So a great thing to do is to pull a group of words from your word wall, old words that you learned before, and use the ones that connect somehow to the new words you're learning. So we're pretending these words on the left are our old words and the words on the right are our words for this week. So what I might do is I might pull all my TH words, because the word them is kind of tricky, especially to use, right? And so if I'm doing that, then I can say, okay, read these words, this, they, then, them. And then I can say, okay, we're gonna write some, right? And so then I can cover some like in the video and say what's missing. Let's start with the word they. Everybody find the word they on here and write it. Okay, let's talk about they, okay? What's missing? Write they again, right? Okay. You can also take these words, these clustered words, and you can write closed sentences. Have them thought of ahead of time, but you might say something like, okay, let's review these words. We review them and you say something like, we ate lunch with, good job, them, okay? Are all my friends. Which word fits in the sentence, guys? They, okay. I will eat dinner, go for a walk. And what's the word? Okay, so you get the idea, but I found a way to review them. All right. From that list, from, because, them, and when, maybe another day I'm clustering all my words where the S sounds like Z, and we're going to use these words to practice. Okay. And then it can be like your whole word wall. Imagine now you have like 30, 40 words on your word wall, and you say something like this. I'm thinking of a word, and it's usually used to start a question. So, you know, at some point in the year, who, what, when, where, why, how, they're all on our word wall, right? Look through the word wall and find a word that starts with a question. Okay, so now they're reading all the words to find words that, you know, frequently begin a question. You can play guess my word with visual clues, okay? I'm thinking of a word that has 4 letters. Can you guys please guess my word in the chat? It's one of the words on the slide. So my word has 4 letters. What could it be? I did not prepare for that glare. Okay, I see from and this. Excellent. What else could it be? Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a hint. My word has an H. Now, which words could it be? We've lost some of our guesses, right? And you can, I wouldn't have the students write all of these words because it takes so long and we want to spend like 5 to 7 minutes, okay? So it's this, they, then, or when, or right? So who? No, guys, who has 3 letters? Remember, I wouldn't say it like that. All right, no one wrote who, by the way. That was my guess. All right, so the idea is then I can give them more information, right? So my word ends with an M. Now I've really narrowed it down. Okay, so that's guess my word oral clues, and you can have your whole word wall available for them to guess the words, and they're searching their word wall for words that match these visual clues. Okay, then we can have closed sentences or sentence frames where it's a written sentence and they have to find a word from the word wall that fills in the blank. And it's awesome when more than one word from your word wall fills in a blank. Okay. And then maybe the last day you use your words, you could have like a word wall ceremony. So I'm going to take from, I'm going to put it on the word wall under the letter F. And we're going to read all the words under letter F on the word wall. Then I'm going to take the word who, I'm going to put it on the word wall. And when, I'll put them on together and we're going to read all of our W words. Okay. So do you see how we're getting that spiral in for those students who need 50 exposures? Also, one more thing to point out. When we do this, sit, I'm never revisiting sit, right? It might go on my word wall for a time, but that's not the word kids are having trouble with, is it? It's words that don't have a clear meaning, like from or like there, right? Where the meaning's confused, them is hard for them to use, and words that don't have a clear spelling, okay? The tricky words is where we put our time. And we get to observe our students reading and writing to know where they need practice, okay? So these are just some pictures of a word wall with a caution. This word wall on the left is pretty, but if you can't see the words, it's not a good word wall, right? If your students can't see them. And so kind of be thoughtful about that and how visible and accessible a word wall is in your classroom. I know wall space is precious. And then always refer to that when you're writing and when they're writing. Speaking of informal assessment. Okay, we have our BAS assessment, but what do you do in the meantime? I'm going to tell you what Wiley Blevins says not to do. Don't test your students on this week's word every week, because of course they remember them this week, right? Or lots of them remember this week, but they don't retain them. And you're spending an hour of your time checking to see if they know something that they might forget in 2 weeks. So it's just not an efficient way to use your time. Think about those really important words. These words that represent 25% of language, okay? I noticed they were spelling they, T-H-A-Y, and when, W-E-N. So I refer to it on the word wall all the time. So then one day I'm just gonna give them a quick assessment and ask them to write it. It's the best way to know if they have it, okay? Then observe their reading of sight words when they're reading, right? That's the easiest way to notice what they're learning. And again, let's look at this writing here, okay? This student has great phonological awareness. I think was is spelled with an O, and what is spelled without an H, they is spelled with an AY. So this student is telling me that they need more practice with high frequency words, okay? Looks like they're sounding everything out to me. All right, scheduling. Here we go. I gotta look at this time because we have 7 minutes left. Okay, so we have our phonological awareness. Now we're at high frequency words. How much time do I spend? When you introduce your new ones, it's going to take probably 10 to 15 minutes, especially in the beginning, okay? For me, my Mondays were always packed, and I wish someone had told me this idea. Introduce your high frequency words on Tuesday if it's hard to fit them in on Monday. New sound Monday, new high frequency words Tuesday. Then the next day I'm going to practice, and maybe it's just my new ones again that I practice. Then Thursday, I'm going to spend 5 to 7 minutes with one of those activities, and I'm going to put in new words and old words. Friday, new words, old words. By Monday in this sequence, all the words are old words, right? We've been going over them a lot. So Monday's a review. Also, we put review there. But that idea is you spend 15 minutes to introduce them, then you do quick bursts of high frequency words throughout the week. And we're never forgetting about the words from before. All right, and instructional pitfalls. These are so important. We have to reflect on our practice and make sure we're headed in the right direction. So introducing new words in a way that does not activate the 3 storage areas of your brain. Remember to go into that slide with the read, spell, write, extend routine and add that routine to your drive or print it, okay? Giving all words the same amount of attention, even though some need more attention. So we kind of mentioned that. Inadequate or non-existent review and repetition. Okay, we've got that. If we're using these strategies, treating high frequency words as oddball or aliens that just have to be memorized when most of the sounds are actually phonetic. We talked about that. Lack of application to reading and writing experiences. Again, when you're doing that shared writing with students, when you come to the word they, have them look at the word wow until you have it spelled. Okay, and then overdoing it. So we really put that schedule in for that reason. And here's the other thing. The earlier high frequency words are more impactful. You are not giving your students a benefit by having them learn 300 high frequency words, okay? 100, 150 high frequency words is a better amount because then they can read text. And if you learn 300 words, but you read at a level E, you're not really that great off, are you? So it's important that it's not about the number of high frequency words. It's about knowing those early, most important words. With that, what did you learn today that you want to remember? And I was going to put you in a breakout room, but I'm not going to because we're so short on time. If you could, you can say it out loud or add it to the chat, whichever you prefer. Awesome. Okay. The strategies, the video of the high frequency words. Yeah. The routine, the schedule. Yeah. I'm glad these ideas are sticking with you because I was wishing I had some of them way back when. Okay. Heart words and flash words. Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm going to go back to our learning intention and success criteria, but please keep those ideas coming. I can see them as they're rolling through and it warms my heart. Success criteria, practice and apply strategies. We have not done that yet because you haven't gone back to your classrooms, okay? So I really hope the goal of this training is that you take some back and you try them. And again, we want our word work to be more efficient, effective, and engaging. Also go back and if you have this slideshow, look at the first ones because sometimes we forget about the phonological awareness because it's not what we ended with. That being said, I'm going to go to this quote. And it takes us back to the idea of balance. Over the decades, beliefs about the right way to teach reading have vacillated widely from rigidly scripted phonics approaches that have the potential to take the interest and joy out of reading to romantic approaches that seem to expect children to figure it out themselves while having pleasurable literacy experiences. This is from Bountas and Pinnell. We advocate literacy approaches that avoid emphasizing one aspect of literacy at the expense of another, and instead address the orchestration of elements of effective reading, phonemic awareness, phonics, accuracy, fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, and engagement. We aim to provide instruction that is deeply connected so school makes sense to children and they learn how written language is connected to spoken language. And I think that's a great end. We're not asking you to spend more time. If you are trying new routines, I might recommend that you introduce only 3 words instead of 5 until your routine is efficient. Then you can add more words. I'm going to place this in the chat. I will be around for questions. I'll stay a little later, but I want to make sure you have time to fill out your evaluation. And thank you for joining us in another hectic year. I really appreciate having you, and I'm going to stop my screen share after I just kind of remind you, if you can, that this is the screen where with the, I'm going to actually also drop this link in the chat. So if you want to add this routine to your drive, you can. Okay. I'll go back to the evaluation in case you need that link again. I can't believe I made it. I was so, we rehearsed. I rehearsed this more than usual because I was like, one wasted minute and we are not finishing. Okay, and with that, I'm going to stop the screen share.
Miss Berry,
Yes.
the next dates, are they the same, or is this a series of different trainings?
This is a series of different trainings. So the next topic will be phonics and spelling.
Thank you.
We're trying to hit phonics and spelling like when we're hitting long vowels, because that's when it gets tough in first grade.
Thank you very much. I learned a lot that I'm definitely excited to use in the classroom.
Awesome. I'm so glad you guys did. This is kind of like a little passion project in addition to an assignment. So we were loving creating it. Glad you enjoyed it.
Stephanie, if we want to go back to the recording of today's, how do we get there so that we can watch it again?
You know what? It takes a while to process the recording. So I think, I don't know where it will live, but I can, if you email me, I don't like telling people I'll remember. I will make sure that I have someone forward this to everyone who was signed up so you guys can watch it.
Thank you.
And we
Actually, I
will
might have
probably,
this. Go ahead.
so Stephanie, we'll probably add it to the DFP.
Oh, awesome. Yes. Oh, I can stop recording.